The twin moons of Alindra floated over the shining palace towers like silver shields. Music drifted through the long crystal halls as the most awaited ceremony in the galaxy began. The marriage between Princess Lyra of Alindra and Ethan Cole of Earth was not born from love, but from the fragile thread of peace. For generations, the royal dominion of Alindra had looked down on the humans of Earth. To them, humanity was primitive, a young race that had grown up in storms and deserts rather than crystal cities. Yet when war threatened to break across the stars, the Council had chosen unity over pride, and that unity had a face. The quiet human groom who now stood at the altar, Ethan Cole wore no royal armor, no gems, no glowing insignias, just a plain dark suit, a single silver ring on his hand, and calm gray eyes that seemed to see everything without fear. Princess Lyra stepped forward in a gown woven from liquid light, her silver hair braided with glowing threads of crystal. She had agreed to this marriage because her mother, the Queen, had commanded it. Her people demanded peace, and peace required a bond with Earth. But deep in her heart, she believed the humans were weak, too fragile to survive among the stars, too emotional to lead. As the royal choir sang, Ethan's voice joined softly in the vow. It was steady and humble. "I vow to protect this union," he said, his eyes fixed on hers, "not by power, but by will." There was no grand declaration, no show of dominance. Yet his words carried something strange, a quiet strength that made Lyra pause. The ceremony ended with polite applause. The alien nobles bowed half-heartedly. Many whispered behind their jeweled masks, mocking the idea of a human prince. But Ethan never reacted. He smiled gently, thanked each guest, and followed Lyra down the golden corridor toward the new quarters prepared for them both that night. The stars shone over the capital city. The streets below were filled with glowing ships and drifting lights. Lyra stood on the balcony, her thoughts heavy. The air smelled of rain and metal. She heard footsteps behind her. Ethan stepped out quietly, holding 2 cups of tea, a human drink he had brought from Earth. "You don't have to pretend to like this," he said softly. "I know this marriage isn't what you wanted," Lyra turned, surprised. "You speak too openly." "I believe honesty is a good start," he said with a faint smile. She accepted the tea, more out of politeness than curiosity. It was bitter, but comforting. For the first time, she looked at him not as a stranger, but as someone different. He didn't act like the loud soldiers of her empire, or the proud nobles of her court. He didn't boast of his planet's technology or demand respect. He was calm, even humble. It confused her. Days passed. Lyra's duties kept her busy, attending council meetings, managing the reconstruction of border colonies, listening to endless debates about trade and defense. Ethan rarely appeared in those rooms. Instead, he spent his time walking through the palace workshops, helping engineers repair old systems. At first, the guards mocked him. "The human groom fixes machines now," they laughed. "Perhaps he can polish the floors next." But he didn't respond. Instead, he studied the broken reactors, the cracked circuits, and quietly began to fix them with his own tools. Within a week, the palace's ancient power grid stabilized, something Alindran scientists had failed to achieve for years. When the Queen asked who had done it, the engineers bowed and pointed to Ethan. He said it was nothing, one of them stammered. "Just old Earth technology principles." Quain's expression softened. Lyra, however, felt a strange conflict growing inside her. Why didn't he defend himself against the insults? Why didn't he boast about his success? He simply kept working, his hands steady, his expression calm. It was as if strength for him didn't need to be shown, only used when needed. One afternoon, Lyra found him in the palace garden repairing a damaged drone. The twin suns cast silver light over the flowers. "You could order others to do this," she said. "I prefer doing it myself," he replied. "Machines tell the truth. They don't flatter or lie." She tilted her head. "You speak like a philosopher." He smiled slightly. "On Earth, I was a soldier once. After the wars ended, I chose peace instead." "A soldier?" Lyra asked. "I thought humans abandoned war." Ethan's eyes grew distant. We learned too much from it. Peace isn't the absence of power, it's the control of it. His words stayed with her for days. The palace soon hosted a grand banquet to celebrate the new alliance. Nobles from across the galaxy attended. The hall glittered with crystal banners and silver firelight. Lyra stood beside Ethan at the head of the table, forced to smile as arrogant lords toasted the union. One lord from the Dominion of Rahl leaned forward, sneering. "Tell us, human prince," he said loudly, "how does it feel to marry into greatness? Do you fear your fragile heart will stop under our gravity?" Laughter echoed through the hall. Lyra's hand clenched around her glass. She expected Ethan to respond angrily, but he only smiled politely. "It feels," he said calmly, "like the start of something that might surprise even the stars." His answer silenced the room. The laughter died. The Lord's smirk faded. Lyra looked at him, startled. There was no aggression in his tone, just confidence wrapped in peace. Later, when they returned to their chamber, she confronted him. "Why didn't you strike back?" "They humiliated you." He set down his cloak quietly. "A flame that answers every spark burns itself first," he said. "I'm not here to win arguments, princess. I'm here to keep peace alive." Lyra turned away, unable to find words. Deep inside, something stirred, a flicker of respect she had never felt for anyone before. Weeks passed, and whispers spread through the palace. Some said the human was strange. Others said he had secret power. The servants noticed how machines responded to him. Doors opened before he touched them. Lights brightened as he passed. Yet he denied all rumors, claiming he was only lucky with old systems. One evening, a storm gathered over Elin. Lightning flashed across the sky, and thunder shook the towers. Lyra was in the library when alarms began to ring. Guards rushed through the halls, shouting, "What's happening?" She demanded, "The defense grid is down." A guard cried, "Unknown ships in orbit, they're dropping mercenaries inside the palace." Lyra froze. The queen was off-world. The palace guard was short-handed. She turned to run toward the command center, but a blast echoed down the corridor. Smoke filled the air. A group of armored intruders burst through the doors. Their insignias marked them as soldiers from Housevorn, a rival noble line that despised the peace treaty. "Take the princess alive," their leader shouted. Lyra's heart raced. She reached for her wristcom to call for help. But before she could activate it, a voice spoke behind her. "Get behind me." It was Ethan. He stepped forward, unarmed. The mercenaries laughed when they saw him, a human, in plain clothes, standing between them and their prize. "Move." "Weakling," one of them snarled. Ethan didn't move. His eyes flicked upward, scanning the ceiling, the floor, the walls as if reading invisible data. Then something changed. The air vibrated. The lights flickered, then flared. A low hum filled the corridor. The mercenaries' weapons crackled and died. Sparks flew from their armored joints. What is this?" one shouted. Ethan raised his hand slightly. Not in threat, but in focus. The hum grew louder, and the intruders collapsed one by one, their armor locking as if frozen by unseen force. When silence fell, the storm outside eased. Lyra stood still, her chest rising and falling. The corridor smelled of ozone and rain. Ethan lowered his hand and turned to her, his expression calm but weary. "Are you hurt?" "No," she whispered, "but what did you just do?" He hesitated. For the first time, she saw something in his eyes. Sadness. "I didn't want you to see that," he said quietly. "I wanted to live as a man, not as what they made me." "What are you?" She breathed. He looked away. "Just someone who remembers what war really costs." Later that night, the palace guards arrived to find the intruders unconscious, their weapons melted. The surveillance systems had glitched, erasing the recording. No one knew what had really happened, but Lyra knew. She couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the scene in her mind, the quiet hum, the way the air had changed, the calm in his eyes. The next morning, she found him sitting alone in the garden as sunlight spilled over the dew. "You saved me," she said softly. He didn't look up. I only did what anyone would do. No, she said. No one could do what you did. You've disabled trained soldiers without touching them. Ethan sighed. On Earth, we learned things we were never meant to. We built weapons that could think and armor that could feel. Some of us changed to survive. But after the wars, we buried those projects and swore never to use them again. Lyra stared at him. So you're not normal? He smiled faintly. No human truly is. We've been shaped by a world that tried to kill us every day. That's why the galaxy calls Earth a death world. The word sent a shiver down her spine. She had heard the term in academy lectures, deathworlders, humans who thrived in chaos, whose instincts were sharper than most species. Weapons. She finally understood the quiet fire she had seen in him all along. You hid your strength, she whispered. Strength, he said. Looking at the horizon means nothing if it can't protect what matters. For a long moment, they said nothing. The wind carried the scent of rain and metal through the garden. Lyra turned to leave, but stopped at the gate. Ethan, she said softly, you said you wanted to live as a man, not as what they made you. Morning light spilled through the crystal windows of Alindra Palace. The storm was gone, but silence stayed heavy in the air. Soldiers were still checking the halls where the mercenaries had fallen. Engineers said the grid failure had been a mystery of nature. Only two people knew the truth, Princess Lyra and the human she had once called weak. Lyra watched Ethan from the balcony. He moved through the courtyard, helping guards reset the damaged power cores. His face showed no pride, no fear, only calm focus. Yet every movement reminded her of that night. The humming air, the frozen enemies, the quiet apology in his eyes. She had seen warriors her entire life, loud, proud, glittering in armor, but none of them carried power the way Ethan did. His strength was invisible until the moment the universe needed it. That evening, when the twin moons rose again, she walked to the garden where he liked to sit. The wind carried the scent of metal and flowers. He was there, sharpening a small tool with patient hands. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. He looked up slowly. Would you have believed me? She thought for a moment. Maybe not. He nodded. Peace isn't built on fear. If your people saw what I can do, they would never trust me. They would see another weapon. But you saved me, she said. I saved you, he replied softly, because you remind me what I'm supposed to protect. Alira's heart beat faster. For the first time, she saw pain in his calm eyes, like someone who carried too many ghosts. What happened to you on Earth? She asked. He hesitated, then set the tool aside. Long before the Alliance, Earth fought a war it almost didn't survive. We built machines that could rewrite matter, energy, even thought. The scientists called it the Genesis program. They wanted to create humans who could defend our world from any threat. But when the wars ended, we realized what we had done. We had turned people into storms. Lyra listened, stunned. You mean you're part of that program? I was one of the last, he said. We shut it down after. Most of us went into hiding. I thought if I married into peace, I could bury that part of myself forever. She stepped closer. But the storm found you again, he smiled faintly. Storms always do. Days passed. The palace returned to normal life, but rumors spread like wildfire. Some guards claimed they had seen light bending around Ethan that night. Others said he was a machine in human skin. The council demanded an inquiry. Lyra tried to defend him. He's my husband and a citizen of the Alliance, she said firmly. He's done nothing wrong. But the council was restless. Fear grows easily among those who do not understand. They ordered an escort from the Dominion fleet to observe the human prince. When the warships arrived in orbit, presence made the sky itself glow red. Lyra met with the Queen privately. Mother, she pleaded, he saved us. He deserves trust, not suspicion. The Queen looked weary. You think I don't see that? But the nobles demand security. They fear power they cannot measure. Lyra clenched her fists. Then they will never know true strength. The Queen studied her daughter for a long time. You've changed, she said softly. The human has touched you. Lyra looked out the window where Ethan worked beside the engineers again, teaching them to repair circuits with simple tools instead of expensive crystals. Yes, she whispered. He taught me that strength can be quiet. That night alarm screamed again. This time it wasn't mercenaries. It was an invasion. The Dominion's oldest enemy, the Karth Empire, had crossed the border. A fleet of 1,000 ships now surrounded Alindra. Their message was short. Surrender your world. Hand over the weapon known as the Human Prince. Panic tore through the palace. The Queen summoned her generals, but their fleets were scattered across the stars. Alindra had no time. Lyra ran through the corridors, searching for Ethan. She found him in the hangar, loading tools into a shuttle. "What are you doing?" she cried. "Evacuations," he said calmly. "If the Karth reach the surface, we save who we can." She grabbed his arm. "You can stop them, can't you?" He met her gaze. "If I do, they'll know Earth's guardians still exist. Every empire in the galaxy will come hunting. And if you don't," she whispered. He looked toward the sky, where the stars burned red under the Karth fleet. "Then they'll burn your world." She didn't hesitate. "Then let them know." The battle began before dawn. The Karth fleet opened fire, raining plasma across the upper atmosphere. Palace shields flickered and failed. The city shook. Towers crumbled. Ethan stood on the highest balcony, wind whipping his hair, his eyes cold and distant. Lyra stood behind him, her heart pounding. He removed the ring from his finger, a simple piece of silver she had thought was a wedding band. Inside it glowed faint blue. "This," he said quietly, "is all that's left of the Genesis program. A seed of Earth's last defense." The ground trembled as another explosion rocked the city. He looked at her. "Whatever happens, stay behind me." Then the air changed. A deep hum spread through the palace, vibrating through the stones, the air, the bones of every living thing. Light burst from Ethan's body, not blinding, but pure like sunlight, refracted through water. The sky responded. Clouds twisted into spirals as energy surged upward. The Karth fleet's weapons faltered, plasma bolts dissolving mid-dash flight from orbit. Soldiers stared at their screens in disbelief. Their systems were shutting down one by one navigation, targeting, propulsion until their ships drifted powerless. Lyra watched from the balcony as glowing lines spread across the heavens, weaving patterns like constellations coming alive. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "Rewriting the grid," he answered. "Every ship runs on energy. I'm turning that energy into silence." Inside the palace, the council watched in awe. The Queen herself stepped onto the balcony beside her daughter. The air shimmered with invisible pressure. "By the stars," she murmured. "He's controlling the sky." Ethan's voice echoed faintly, calm and sorrowful. "They call Earth a death world because it taught us this every breath, every heartbeat, every storm is survival." As he spoke, the Karth fleet collapsed. Ships went dark, drifting like dead stars across the void. No explosion followed, just a deep, endless quiet. The silence lasted several minutes. Then, slowly, light returned to normal. The hum faded. Ethan swayed. Lyra caught him before he fell. His breathing was shallow, his pulse faint. "Ethan," she cried. He smiled weakly. "I didn't want to use it again, but I couldn't let them take you." Tears filled her eyes. "You saved everyone." He shook his head. "No, I only reminded them that peace must be protected." Hours later, reports came in from across the system. The Karth fleet had retreated. None of their ships could restart. The war was over before it began. The Queen called an emergency session of the council. Every noble was silent as she entered with Ethan beside her. "This human," the Queen said, her voice carrying through the hall, stood alone against 1,000 ships. "He saved not only our world, but your families, your cities, your lives. And you called him weak." No one dared speak. Lyra stood beside Ethan, her chin high. "You feared him because he was quiet. You mocked him because he didn't shout his strength. But true power doesn't need an audience. The council bowed their heads. One by one, they knelt, a gesture never seen before toward a human. Ethan only shook his head. Don't kneel. Stand. Peace needs equals, not masters. For the first time in Alindra's history, the hall echoed not with pride, but with respect in the days that followed. News of the silent human spread across the galaxy. Some worlds called him a hero, others a threat. Earth's name, once spoken with disdain, came a word of caution and wonder. Lyra spent every moment at his side as he recovered. The doctors said his energy reserves were nearly gone, yet he smiled whenever she entered the room. One evening, she found him standing by the window again. Watching the repaired skyline? Are you all right? She asked. He nodded slowly. It's strange. All my life I thought strength meant surviving, but now I think it means giving others the chance to live without fear. Lyra touched his hand gently. You gave my people that chance. He turned toward her, his gray eyes soft. No, princess. You believed in me when no one else would. She smiled. Then we both saved each other. They stood in silence as the moons rose above the horizon, glowing brighter than before. Months passed. The alliance between Earth and Alindra deepened. Trade ships traveled freely, and mixed crews of humans and aliens worked together on rebuilding cities. Statues were never built for Ethan. He refused every honor, but stories spread in every starport. Children played the silent guardian, pretending to raise invisible shields against the sky. One day, Lyra found Ethan repairing a power core again, as if nothing had changed. You could command fleets now, she teased. Why fix machines? He grinned. Because peace needs maintenance too. She laughed softly, realizing that this simple man from a so-called primitive world had become the strongest symbol of unity in the galaxy. But deep inside, she also knew that if danger ever returned, the same quiet light would rise again years later. When the stars told stories of ancient heroes, they spoke of a human who married a princess and refused to raise his hand in anger till the day he silenced an empire to protect her. They said his power could move planets, yet his heart stayed gentle. They said the galaxy changed the night, he whispered to the sky, and the sky obeyed. And somewhere, far from the noise of thrones and fleets, the human Andy